Sometimes, the last door you knock on isn't the one you expect to open. It's the one that quietly changes your entire life. Rain slid slowly down the glass walls of Grant Holdings, turning the morning skyline of Chicago into a blur of silver and gray. Emily Carter stood beneath the towering entrance, her worn leather handbag resting against her side. Inside it, one folded resume, $3.26, a nearly empty bottle of water, and a family photo she refused to throw away. That was everything she owned that morning. She looked up at the polished building stretching nearly 50 stories into the clouds. It didn't feel like a place where people like her belonged. But when you have nothing left, belonging becomes a luxury. You simply keep walking. Her daughter, Sophie, waited 2 blocks away at a neighbor's apartment before school. Emily had kissed her forehead that morning and whispered the same promise she had repeated every day for weeks. "I'm coming back with good news." She wasn't sure she believed it anymore. 3 months without steady work. 2 overdue rent notices. A refrigerator that echoed every time she opened the door. She had ironed her only blouse the night before. She had polished shoes that were beginning to crack around the edges. She had practiced smiling in the bathroom mirror until it almost looked real. Inside the lobby, warm marble floors reflected soft golden light. Executives crossed the room carrying leather briefcases. Employees greeted one another with relaxed confidence. Emily quietly stepped aside each time someone hurried past. She didn't want to be in anyone's way. Old habits formed during difficult years rarely disappear overnight. She checked the interview confirmation on her phone. Administrative assistant. Entry level. 1 opening. Nearly 200 applicants. The odds weren't encouraging. Neither was life lately. She took a slow breath. Then another. Across the lobby, an elderly janitor struggled to push a heavy cleaning cart over the edge of a thick entrance mat. One wheel caught. The cart stopped. People walked around him without slowing. Some glanced briefly. Most never looked up. Emily hesitated. The interview registration desk had already opened. Every minute mattered. She looked toward the elevators, then quietly turned around. "Good morning," she said with a gentle smile. "May I help?" The old man's tired eyes widened. "You don't have to." "I know." She wrapped both hands around the side of the cart. Together they lifted the front wheels over the mat. Took only a few seconds. The janitor chuckled softly. "Guess I'm not as young as I used to be." Emily smiled. "My dad used to say accepting help isn't weakness. It's letting kindness do its job." The old man nodded, almost surprised by the answer. "Thank you." "You're welcome." She adjusted the strap on her handbag and continued toward the reception desk. Neither of them noticed the man standing quietly on the mezzanine balcony above. Daniel Grant, CEO of Grant Holdings. 6'4", perfectly tailored navy suit, hands resting lightly on the glass railing. He had originally stopped to review preparations for the morning executive meeting. Instead, he found himself watching a woman who had paused her own chance at survival, simply to help someone everyone else had ignored. She never looked around to see who was watching. She never expected recognition. She simply kept walking, for reasons Daniel couldn't explain. He continued watching long after she disappeared into the elevator. And for the first time in years, the most important meeting on his calendar no longer seemed like the one that mattered. The interview room overlooked Lake Michigan. Floor-to-ceiling windows filled the space with quiet daylight, making everything feel larger than life. The polished conference table, the leather chairs, the framed photographs celebrating decades of business success. Emily sat alone, carefully folding her hands together to stop them from trembling. She reminded herself to breathe, one question at a time, one answer at a time. Outside the room, 2 hiring managers quietly reviewed the final list of candidates. There are still 6 strong applicants. The one from Northwestern has 5 years of executive experience, and another managed an entire regional office. A woman glanced toward Emily's resume. Emily Carter employment gap. No corporate background. The other manager sighed. "She probably is not our strongest candidate." Neither of them noticed the executive assistant approaching with measured steps. "Mr. Grant would like to review the finalist files before any decision is made." Both managers exchanged surprised looks. The chief executive officer? Immediately. Within minutes, 6 folders rested on Daniel Grant's desk. He opened the first one. Impressive credentials. Outstanding recommendations. Advanced degrees. He closed it. The second, even stronger. The excellent leadership. Yet something felt strangely incomplete. Then he reached the final folder. Emily Carter. 1 page. Simple. Honest. No extraordinary achievements. No prestigious universities. No remarkable titles. Only steady jobs. Interrupted by difficult years. Daniel quietly remembered the woman pushing the janitor's cart. Nobody had asked her. Nobody had applauded her. She had simply chosen kindness when kindness cost her time. He pressed the intercom. Bring me the security recording from the main lobby. 8:43 this morning. His assistant hesitated for only a second. Yes, sir. A few minutes later, the video played across the large monitor. Daniel watched silently. Again. Then once more. The woman never looked around. Never searched for approval. Never expected gratitude. She smiled exactly the same way each time. Natural. Gentle. Unforced. Daniel leaned back in his chair. Character could not always be measured on a resume. It appeared in moments that no interview question could ever create. He stood. I would like to meet candidate Carter personally. The hiring committee gathered only minutes later. Confusion spread around the room. One manager spoke carefully. Sir, there are applicants with significantly stronger qualifications. There are. They would require less training. They would. Another manager looked genuinely puzzled. May we ask why you selected her? Daniel remained quiet for several seconds. Then he answered with calm certainty. Skills can be taught. The room fell completely silent. He continued. Integrity cannot. Nobody argued. Inside the interview room, Emily looked down at the small photograph tucked inside her wallet. Sophie smiled back with 2 missing front teeth. Emily gently whispered, almost too softly to hear. I am trying, sweetheart. A gentle knock interrupted her thoughts. The door opened. Daniel Grant entered without hurry. Not surrounded by executives. Not followed by assistants. Just one man walking into a room. Emily immediately stood. Her eyes widened. She recognized him. The man from the balcony. The man she had barely noticed. Good morning, Miss Carter. His voice carried quiet confidence. She nodded politely. Good morning, sir. Daniel took the seat across from her instead of at the opposite end of the long table. The distance between them suddenly felt surprisingly small. He looked at her resume only briefly. Then he closed the folder. I have only one question. Emily blinked. Only one. Daniel folded his hands together. If someone gave you a chance today, what would you protect the most? Emily did not answer immediately. She lowered her eyes for a moment, then looked directly at him. My daughter's belief. Her voice remained steady. She still thinks hard work always matters. I cannot let her grow up believing that kindness and honesty stop working just because life becomes difficult. Silence filled the room. Not uncomfortable. Meaningful. Daniel smiled almost imperceptibly. For the first time that morning, he knew the interview was already over. Emily did not remember leaving the interview room. She only remembered the sound of the elevator doors closing and the quiet weight of uncertainty following her downstairs. People often smiled before delivering disappointing news. She had learned that lesson long ago. Standing near the front entrance, she reached into her handbag and counted her money one more time. $3.26. Enough for a bus ride. Not enough for another week of worrying. Her phone vibrated. A message from her neighbor. Sophie finished her homework. She keeps asking if you got the job. Emily smiled gently. Then she typed only 4 words. I am still hoping. Before she could put her phone away, someone called her name. Miss Carter. She turned. The executive assistant who had escorted candidates throughout the morning approached with a warm but professional smile. Mr. Grant would like to see you once more. Emily blinked. I thought the interview was finished. It is. The assistant smiled again. But he still wishes to speak with you. They returned upstairs. This time they did not stop at the conference rooms. The elevator continued climbing. 40th floor. 45th. Finally, the doors opened onto the executive level. Everything felt quieter here. The carpet softened every footstep. Large windows flooded the hallway with afternoon sunlight. Original artwork lined the walls instead of company awards. The assistant stopped outside a pair of oak doors. "He is waiting." Emily took one slow breath, then stepped inside. Daniel stood near the windows overlooking the city. Without turning around, he said softly, "Beautiful view." Emily nodded. "Yes, sir. It reminds me every day that every window tells a different story." Only then did he face her. His expression remained calm, not intimidating, not distant, simply thoughtful. "I appreciate that you came back. I was asked, and I appreciate that you said yes." He walked toward his desk and picked up a single folder. It was not thick, only a few pages. He placed it carefully in front of her. "I would like to offer you the position." Emily stared at the folder without touching it. For several long seconds, she said nothing. Daniel waited patiently. Finally, she whispered, "I am sorry." He looked slightly surprised. "You are sorry? I thought I heard you incorrectly." A quiet laugh escaped him. "No, you heard correctly." Her fingers trembled as she slowly opened the folder. Offer of employment, administrative assistant, full-time, health insurance, retirement benefits, paid vacation, a salary larger than any she had earned before. The words became difficult to read, not because they were complicated, because tears blurred every line. She quickly looked away. "I promised myself I would not cry today," Daniel answered gently. Sometimes tears simply mean the heart finally has permission to rest. Emily covered her mouth for a moment. She took another careful breath. "I do not know how to thank you." "You already have." She looked up, confused. "This morning, when you stopped to help someone who could offer you nothing in return." Emily lowered her eyes. "It only took a few seconds." Daniel nodded. "Exactly." He leaned lightly against the desk. "Our company has many talented people. We can teach software. We can teach procedures. We can teach systems." He paused. "But kindness is very difficult to teach." Silence settled comfortably between them. Not empty, hopeful. Daniel slid a small envelope across the desk. "Your employee identification badge will be ready on Monday. Human resources will help you with everything else." Emily carefully held the envelope as though it might disappear if she squeezed too hard. Monday. One simple word. Yet it suddenly sounded like the beginning of another life. Outside, the rain had stopped. Sunlight broke through the clouds, reflecting across the city skyline. As Emily stepped onto the sidewalk a few minutes later, she looked toward the bright afternoon sky. Then she called the one person who had never stopped believing in her. The phone rang once, twice. Then a little voice answered with excitement. "Mom." Emily smiled through quiet tears. "Sweetheart." She laughed softly before continuing. "I think we are going to be just fine." Hundreds of feet above the street, Daniel remained standing beside his office window. He watched the woman disappear into the crowd below, for reasons he still could not explain. He had the unmistakable feeling that hiring Emily Carter had not solved a story. It had only opened the first page. Monday arrived wrapped in clear autumn sunlight. Emily stood outside Grant Holdings 15 minutes early, holding a fresh cup of coffee that she had brewed at home to save money. Everything about the morning felt different. Not easier, just possible. She pressed her new employee badge against the security scanner. A soft green light appeared. "Welcome." One simple word. Yet it carried more comfort than she expected. The lobby looked exactly the same. The marble floors, the towering windows, the quiet confidence of people beginning another workday. Only Emily had changed. She was no longer wondering whether she belonged inside. She had been invited. A smiling human resources coordinator greeted her near the reception desk. "Good morning, Emily. Welcome to the family." Family. The word lingered in her thoughts as they walked toward the employee orientation room. Several new hires introduced themselves over coffee and pastries. Some spoke confidently about previous corporate positions. Others joked about getting lost inside such a large building. Emily mostly listened. She smiled often. She spoke when someone spoke to her. Nothing more. By late morning, orientation had ended. Her supervisor handed her a neatly organized folder. "There is one last delivery before lunch." Emily nodded. "Of course." The supervisor pointed toward the executive floor. "These financial reports need to be placed in the historical archive. The records room is clearly labeled. Do not worry. You cannot miss it." Emily thanked her and stepped into the elevator. The higher the elevator climbed, the quieter everything became. The executive hallway was almost empty. Soft sunlight stretched across polished wooden floors. Every office door looked identical, until she reached the very end. One door stood slightly open. Not the archive. No label. No voices. Just silence. Emily hesitated. Perhaps someone had forgotten to close it. She gently knocked. No answer. She pushed the door open only enough to speak. "Hello." Still nothing. She glanced inside. The room felt untouched by time. Unlike the modern offices below, this space carried the warmth of another generation. Dark oak bookshelves reached the ceiling. Framed black and white photographs covered one wall. An antique globe stood beside a wide wooden desk. Everything was carefully arranged. Everything seemed deeply personal. Emily immediately realized she had entered the wrong room. "I am so sorry." She whispered the apology to an empty office and turned to leave. Then, something caught her eye. On a small table near the window rested an old cedar box. Its lid had been left partially open. Beside it lay a faded photograph. Emily stopped without understanding why. The picture showed several volunteers standing outside a neighborhood community center many years earlier. The edges had yellowed with age, faces blurred slightly by time. Yet one woman near the center seemed strangely familiar. Not because Emily recognized her, because she felt as though she should. A quiet warmth settled over her. An impossible feeling, like remembering a dream she had never actually dreamed. She stepped one pace closer, not to touch, only to look. Around the edge of the photograph, elegant handwriting appeared in fading blue ink. "Kindness always returns home." Emily repeated the words under her breath. They sounded less like a caption, and more like a promise. A gentle voice suddenly broke the silence. "My grandmother wrote that herself." Emily turned so quickly that she almost dropped the folder she had been carrying. Daniel stood quietly in the doorway. There was no surprise in his expression, only calm curiosity. "I am sorry," Emily said immediately. "I thought this was the archive room." Daniel smiled. "It happens more often than you would think." She looked embarrassed. "I should leave." "You can." He walked into the office with unhurried steps. "But before you do..." His eyes moved toward the old photograph. "I am curious." Emily looked back at the picture. "What made you stop?" She searched for an answer that made sense. "I honestly do not know. It just felt." She paused, choosing her words carefully. "Important." Daniel studied her face for a quiet moment. Then he looked at the photograph himself. For years, hundreds of people had passed through this office. Very few had ever noticed that old cedar box. Even fewer had stopped because of a single faded photograph. As Emily quietly left the room carrying the reports to the correct archive, Daniel remained standing beside the window. His grandmother's handwritten words echoed gently through his memory. "Kindness always returns home." For the second time since meeting Emily Carter, something happened that logic alone could not explain. The rest of Emily's first day passed quietly. She organized files, answered phones, learned unfamiliar computer systems, smiled whenever someone offered guidance. Every small success felt like another brick, rebuilding a life that had almost collapsed. By late afternoon, the building settled into a calmer rhythm. Conversations became softer. Keyboards slowed. Sunlight drifted across the office floor, turning everything warm with the colors of early evening. Emily carried a stack of completed reports toward the records department. As she rounded the corner, she noticed the elderly janitor from her interview day kneeling beside a supply cabinet. Several folders had slipped onto the floor. Without hesitation, She placed her own reports on a nearby table. "May I help again?" The old man looked up and laughed warmly. "I was hoping you would not catch me making another mess." "It is not a mess." Emily knelt beside him, carefully gathering every folder before arranging them in neat order. "It is simply a busy day." The janitor smiled. "You always find kind ways to describe difficult things." She shrugged gently. "My mother believed words could make heavy days feel lighter." Before either of them noticed, another employee had stopped walking. Then another. Within moments, a young accountant quietly stepped forward. "I can carry those upstairs." A receptionist added with a smile, "I will finish organizing the cabinet." Nobody had been asked. Nobody had been instructed. Kindness simply moved from one person to another. The old janitor watched the scene with quiet amusement. "It spreads faster than people think." Emily smiled. "I hope so." Across the executive floor, Daniel stood inside a conference room finishing a meeting with senior leadership. The discussion centered on quarterly projections, expansion plans, and investment strategies. Profits, growth, numbers. Yet through the glass wall beside the conference room, he happened to notice several employees laughing together in the hallway. Not because someone had told a joke, because they were helping each other. His assistant quietly leaned toward him. "That is unusual." Daniel followed her gaze. Emily was thanking everyone before returning to her own work as though nothing remarkable had happened. He said nothing, but he noticed. Very carefully. Later that evening, after most employees had gone home, Daniel stopped by the security office. The elderly security officer welcomed him with a respectful nod. "You are working late again, sir?" Daniel smiled. "It seems so." He hesitated for a moment. "May I ask you something?" "Of course." The new administrative assistant. The security officer grinned before Daniel even finished. "Emily." Daniel nodded. "You already know her name." "Everyone does." Daniel looked genuinely curious. "Why?" The older man leaned back comfortably. "Because she notices people." He folded his hands together. This morning she learned the names of every receptionist. She thanked the mail clerk. She remembered the maintenance technician who fixed the copy machine. He chuckled softly. "And she even asked whether my granddaughter enjoyed her piano recital." Daniel frowned slightly. "How could she know about your granddaughter?" "I mentioned it for 10 seconds while printing her temporary badge." The security officer smiled proudly. "Most people hear. Emily listens." Silence settled between them. Not awkward, thoughtful. Before leaving, Daniel thanked the officer and walked slowly toward the executive elevator. As the doors opened, his eyes drifted toward the quiet office where the old cedar box still rested beneath the window. His grandmother had spent her life believing one simple truth. Character revealed itself in ordinary moments. Not grand speeches, not impressive titles, just the small decisions people made when nobody expected anything from them. Downstairs, Emily gathered her handbag before leaving for the evening. As she reached inside to find her bus pass, her fingers brushed against something unfamiliar. A small cream-colored card. She was certain it had not been there that morning. There was no name, no signature, only a single sentence, written in elegant blue ink. "Some doors open because someone else quietly believed you belonged on the other side." Emily read the words twice, then once more. A gentle chill ran through her. The handwriting looked remarkably similar to the words beneath the old photograph she had discovered only hours earlier. For the second time that day, she found herself holding something she could not explain. The cream-colored card stayed in Emily's thoughts all evening. She read it again while riding the city bus home. Then once more after Sophie had fallen asleep. There was no company logo, no signature, only elegant blue handwriting that felt strangely familiar. Emily finally slipped the card inside the same family photo she always carried. Some things did not need immediate answers. Some things simply asked to be remembered. Tuesday morning arrived with crisp October air. The second day felt less intimidating. Employees greeted her by name. Someone saved her a cup of coffee. Another coworker smiled and asked about Sophie's first week back at school. For the first time in many months, Emily did not feel invisible. Late that morning, her supervisor approached her desk carrying several folders. Emily, I have a small favor to ask. Of course. The historical archive is missing a few files from 25 years ago. They should be in the executive library. You organized records so carefully yesterday that I thought you might enjoy helping. Emily smiled. I would be happy to. A few minutes later, she unlocked the quiet executive library. Unlike the private office she had entered by mistake, this room welcomed employees who needed historical company documents. Tall wooden shelves stretched from floor to ceiling. The scent of aged paper filled the peaceful space. Sunlight drifted gently through narrow windows. It felt more like a library than a corporate office. She carefully searched the archive numbers listed on her clipboard. Everything appeared perfectly organized. Until she reached one nearly forgotten shelf. A thin leather journal rested between two accounting ledgers. It was not listed in the archive inventory. Curious, Emily gently removed it. There was no title, only the year embossed in gold. 1998. She opened the cover carefully. Inside, elegant handwriting filled the first page. Not business notes, not financial records. Simple reflections. Small acts of kindness witnessed throughout each week. One employee sharing lunch with another. A receptionist comforting a worried visitor. A manager quietly paying for an intern's college textbooks. Emily smiled without realizing it. The handwriting. It matched the card. It matched the words beneath the old photograph. Kindness always returns home. Before she could read another page, a calm voice came from behind her. I wondered how long it would take someone to find that journal. Emily slowly turned. Daniel stood near the doorway, hands resting comfortably inside his suit pockets. She immediately closed the journal. I am sorry. I thought it was part of the archive. In a way, it is. His voice carried no frustration, only quiet affection. He stepped closer and gently accepted the journal. My grandmother started writing these entries after she founded the company's community outreach program. Emily looked surprised. She wrote about kindness instead of business? Daniel smiled. She believed successful companies should remember people before profits. He carefully opened the journal to one familiar page. The balance sheet tells us how wealthy a company becomes. He glanced toward Emily. But these pages tell us whether we deserved it. Silence settled gently between them. Emily looked around the peaceful room. It feels different in here. It does. Daniel nodded. My grandmother refused to redesign this library. She said every generation should have one room where time moves more slowly. Emily laughed softly. I think I understand what she meant. As they spoke, footsteps echoed in the hallway. Daniel's executive assistant appeared at the doorway. Sir, your board meeting begins in 5 minutes. Daniel closed the journal. I will be there shortly. The assistant nodded before quietly leaving. Daniel carefully returned the journal to its shelf. Then he paused. Emily. Yes. If you ever discover something here that makes you curious. He smiled warmly. Please ask. I would rather answer questions than leave someone wondering. Emily nodded gratefully. I will. As Daniel disappeared down the hallway, Emily looked once more toward the leather journal. One question had finally found an answer. The mysterious handwriting belonged to his grandmother. But another question quietly took its place. If that journal had remained untouched for years, who had placed the handwritten card inside her handbag on her very first day? Wednesday morning arrived with an unexpected sense of peace. For the first time in months, Emily woke before her alarm. The apartment was still small. The furniture was still worn. Bills still waited on the kitchen counter. Yet the silence no longer felt heavy. It felt hopeful. As Sophie finished her cereal, she looked up with a bright smile. Mom. Yes, sweetheart. You smile before work now. Emily paused. Children notice things adults often overlooked. She reached across the table and gently squeezed Sophie's hand. I think I finally found a place where people see each other. Sophie nodded as though that answer explained everything. Maybe it did. Later that morning, Grant Holdings buzzed with quiet energy. Employees moved confidently through the hallways. Meetings began. Phones rang. Printers hummed softly in the background. Emily settled naturally into her responsibilities. She answered calls with calm confidence. She organized schedules. She remembered names. The work no longer felt unfamiliar. Near lunchtime, Daniel walked through the administrative department on his way to another meeting. He greeted everyone with the same quiet courtesy. "Good morning." "Thank you." "Have a wonderful day." Nothing about his manner suggested he was the owner of a company worth billions of dollars. Emily noticed something else. Every employee smiled genuinely when he passed. Not because they had to, because they wanted to. That simple observation stayed with her. During the afternoon, an elderly woman entered the reception area carrying a small paper envelope. She looked uncertain. "I am sorry," she said softly. "I do not have an appointment." Emily immediately stood. "That is perfectly all right. How may I help you?" The woman smiled with visible relief. "My husband worked here many years ago. He passed away last winter. I found something in our attic that belongs to this company." She carefully opened the envelope. Inside rested an old brass employee badge. Its edges had faded with time. Emily accepted it gently with both hands. It must have meant a great deal to him. The woman's eyes filled with quiet emotion. It did. He always said this company gave him more than a paycheck. Emily hesitated. Then she remembered the journal, the photograph, the handwritten card. Perhaps there was someone who would appreciate seeing this. "If you have a few minutes," Emily said warmly, "I believe someone would like to thank you personally." The woman looked surprised. "You would do that?" "I would be honored." Emily called Daniel's assistant. Only minutes later, Daniel stepped into the reception area. His eyes immediately settled on the worn brass badge. He stopped walking. For a brief moment, he said nothing. Then he smiled gently at the elderly woman. "My grandfather personally welcomed your husband on his first day." The woman looked astonished. "You remember him?" Daniel nodded. "I remember the stories." He accepted the badge with quiet respect. "Thank you for bringing this home." Home. Emily noticed the word immediately. The same word from the photograph. Kindness always returns home. After the visitor departed, Daniel remained standing near the reception desk. He looked thoughtfully at the old badge resting in his hand. "My grandmother used to keep handwritten records of employees who quietly helped others." Emily looked up. "The journal." He smiled. "Yes. There was something else she kept." Emily waited. "A cedar box. The one in your office?" Daniel's expression changed ever so slightly. "You remember it?" "I do." He nodded slowly. "My grandmother believed every meaningful object carried a story. Letters, photographs, employee badges, small reminders that kindness rarely makes headlines, but always leaves footprints." Emily looked toward the executive elevator. Did she collect them all herself? Daniel answered softly. "For decades." He paused. "And before she passed away, she left one instruction." Emily listened carefully. She said. He smiled with quiet affection. "When the right person arrives, the stories will begin finding them on their own." Silence settled gently between them. Neither of them tried to explain those words. Neither of them needed to. As Daniel returned to his meetings, Emily found herself looking once again toward the executive floor. The mysterious card, the faded photograph, the forgotten journal, the cedar box. They no longer felt like separate moments. They felt like pieces of the same story. And somewhere inside that story, she had the unmistakable feeling that she had not been invited into Grant Holdings by chance. Thursday evening brought an unexpected invitation. Every employee received the same email. The annual community appreciation gathering would begin at 6 o'clock in the company atrium. No formal speeches. No business presentations. Simply an evening to celebrate the people behind the company. Emily almost decided not to attend. She still felt new. Still felt as though she was borrowing someone else's place in the story. Then her supervisor smiled. "You belong there." Those 3 words quietly settled every doubt. As the sun disappeared behind the Chicago skyline, warm lights illuminated the enormous glass atrium. Round tables filled the room. Fresh flowers decorated every centerpiece. Soft piano music drifted through the air. Employees arrived with spouses, children, parents, and lifelong friends. The atmosphere felt less like a corporate event and more like a neighborhood gathering. Emily walked slowly through the room, greeting familiar faces. The receptionist waved enthusiastically. The mail clerk introduced her to his wife. The maintenance technician proudly showed photographs of his newborn grandson. Each conversation reminded her of something remarkable. People here remembered one another. Not only names, lives. Near the center of the atrium stood a long display of historical company photographs. Curiosity drew Emily closer. Frames stretched across nearly a century. Construction crews, holiday celebrations, volunteer projects, scholarship ceremonies. Then she stopped. There it was. The same faded photograph she had first seen beside the cedar box. Only this copy was larger, clearer. She leaned forward. For the first time, she could see every face. Her eyes slowly moved across the volunteers. Then they settled on one young woman standing near the middle. The resemblance was unmistakable. Emily's breathing slowed. The woman's gentle smile. The soft curve of her face. Even the warm expression in her eyes. She looked astonishingly similar to Emily's late mother. Not identical, but close enough to stir something deep inside her heart. A small brass plaque rested beneath the photograph. Community Outreach Volunteers. Spring 1998. Led by Eleanor Grant. Emily whispered the name quietly. Eleanor Grant. So you found it. Daniel's familiar voice came gently from beside her. She looked up. He stood holding 2 cups of coffee. One was already extended toward her. She accepted it with a grateful smile. Thank you. For several quiet moments, they simply looked at the photograph together. Finally, Emily spoke. This woman. She pointed carefully. She reminds me of my mother. Daniel followed her hand. His expression softened. I noticed that the first day you stopped in my grandmother's office. Emily turned toward him. You noticed. I notice more than people think. A gentle silence followed. Then Daniel looked back at the photograph. My grandmother rarely organized volunteer events herself. She believed leadership meant serving alongside everyone else. Emily smiled. My mother believed something very similar. Daniel looked at her thoughtfully. What was her name? Sarah Carter. He repeated it slowly, almost as though searching his memory. Sarah Carter. The name seemed to linger somewhere just beyond his reach. Before either of them could say another word, an elderly voice interrupted gently. I remember Sarah. Both turned at once. The old janitor stood a few feet away, smiling warmly. Emily stared in surprise. You knew my mother? He nodded without hesitation. Many years ago. She volunteered here several Saturdays with your grandmother. He looked toward Daniel. And with Miss Eleanor. Daniel's eyes widened. You never told me that. The old man chuckled softly. You never asked. Emily felt her heart begin to race. My mother never mentioned this company. The janitor's smile became thoughtful. She did not come here for the company. She came because Eleanor believed every child deserved someone who believed in them. His words settled gently over the conversation. Daniel looked once more at the old photograph, then back at Emily. For the first time, the strange feeling that had followed him since the interview began to make quiet sense. Perhaps it had never been coincidence. Perhaps 2 stories started decades apart, had simply been waiting for the right moment to meet again. Across the atrium, laughter filled the room. Music continued softly. Life moved forward around them. Yet for Emily and Daniel, time seemed to pause beside one old photograph that had finally begun revealing its story. The gathering slowly came to an end. Families collected their coats. Children chased one another beneath the warm lights of the atrium. The piano played its final quiet melody before the room gradually emptied. Emily remained standing in front of the old photograph. She could not look away. The resemblance to her mother was still there. Not enough to answer every question. More than enough to awaken them. The elderly janitor approached once again. This time, he carried a small wooden envelope box that looked almost as old as the photograph itself. I think this belongs with you now. Emily looked surprised. With me? He nodded. Eleanor asked that it be given only when someone arrived who reminded everyone why this company was built. Daniel turned toward him. You never mentioned another box." The old man smiled kindly. Miss Eleanor believed some promises should wait for the right season. He carefully handed the box to Emily. Inside rested a neatly folded letter. Its paper had aged to a soft ivory color. Across the front, elegant blue handwriting appeared once more. "To the person who still believes kindness is worth choosing." Emily slowly unfolded the letter. The atrium around her seemed to disappear. Only the words remained. "If you are reading this, then our company has found another guardian." Emily paused. Guardian. Not employee. Not manager. Guardian. She continued reading. "Wealth builds buildings. Talent builds businesses. But only kindness builds a place that people call home." A quiet tear slipped down her cheek. Daniel remained silent. He recognized every sentence. His grandmother had spoken those words throughout his childhood. Emily reached the final paragraph. "If you ever wonder whether your smallest act matters, remember this. Someone you will never meet may build an entirely different life because you chose compassion on an ordinary day." The letter ended with a simple signature. Eleanor Grant. Nothing more. Emily carefully folded the letter. Neither she nor Daniel spoke for several moments. Finally, Daniel smiled. "I have searched for that letter for years." Emily looked surprised. "You knew it existed?" "My grandmother told me there would come a day when it would find the right person." He laughed softly. "I assumed she meant one of our future executives." He gently shook his head. "I never imagined she meant someone who had only been here 4 days." The elderly janitor smiled knowingly. Miss Eleanor was rarely wrong. A peaceful silence settled over all three of them. Not because there was nothing left to say, because some moments become complete without explanation. The following Monday, Daniel announced a new company tradition. Every employee, regardless of position, would receive 8 paid volunteer hours every month to serve their community. No quotas, no publicity, no mandatory photographs, only an opportunity to help someone quietly. When the leadership team asked what inspired the decision, Daniel answered with unusual simplicity, "We are continuing something that should never have been forgotten." Months passed. Emily flourished in her new role. Confidence slowly replaced fear. Laughter returned to her apartment. Sophie's drawings once again covered the refrigerator door. The overdue notices disappeared. Hope quietly unpacked its bags and stayed. One crisp spring morning, nearly 6 months after her first interview, Emily stood beside the reception desk when a nervous young single mother walked through the revolving doors holding a worn resume against her chest. The woman looked exactly the way Emily had looked that rainy morning. Unsure. Exhausted. One step away from giving up. Emily smiled warmly and walked toward her. "Good morning." The young woman looked embarrassed. "I hope I am not too early." "You are exactly on time." Emily gently straightened the stack of application papers in the woman's hands. Then she spoke the words that had quietly transformed her own life. "Everyone deserves one person who believes in them." Across the lobby, Daniel watched the conversation from the mezzanine balcony where this journey had first begun. He did not interrupt. He simply smiled. Because at that moment, he finally understood what his grandmother had tried to teach him all those years ago. Kindness was never meant to end with the person who received it. Its true purpose was to become someone else's beginning.